Hi, we are still working on this 800XL with a Rapidus in it. Mute that. Mute you. Yes, so we're still working on this 800XL with the Rapidus board. I'm trying the different mic mounted here. I just about gave up last night. In last night's stream I curtailed it. I brought it to an end pretty quickly because the fix that I put on the board, which was a pull-up resistors on A0 and to A7, it didn't work. I thought it worked, but it didn't work. It fooled me into thinking it worked. And when the time came to actually show you that it did work, it didn't work anymore. So what I ended up doing earlier on today is I went to my bank of desperate measures, and I remembered one of the other steps that I tried was a firmware update. Now, it didn't strike me, it struck me as completely impossible that a Rapidus board, which appeared to have been purchased presumably this year, would ship with the firmware that still had the unwanted reboot on system reset issue that my board had a year ago, because the person who owns this machine, I'm assuming they bought the Rapidus a matter of weeks ago. And it just occurred to me that, is it possible that this board still has the old firmware on it? Because my experience of applying the new firmware that came out in September last year was that it did affect, it improved this problem where the machine would reboot in 6502 mode. It would reboot spontaneously, particularly when the machine had become a little bit warmed up after you turned it on. And the issue we were seeing on this machine was that it would appear to work with the pull-up resistors on A0 to A7. It would appear to work for about a minute or 2 minutes, at which point I just gave up because I was frightened to proceed. But when it actually came to testing it properly, 2 or 3 minutes in, the problem would return, despite the fact that I put pull-up resistors on the CPU socket. So I used I'll show you the cable. This hadn't been used for quite a long time, and it's on a machine that doesn't have a parallel port, so it's got a PCI Express parallel port card. This is the cable. This is the JTAG cable that I use to update the heatsinks firmware on the Rapidus. There's an FPGA on the Rapidus board, but there's also a heatsinks. Now the heatsinks basically takes care of the logic of the board. The FPGA takes care of the 65816 processor. So what I wanted to do was update the JTAG file on the Heatsink chip. And this is the same cable you would use, or you could use, to update the same chip on an outlet 1 megabyte. But of course, with the firmware basically being finalized now, this cable had lain in the box for quite some time. But it was brought out again today, so as well as this cable, you can get a USB version of the Heatsink cable for a little bit more money on eBay. I think Candle built me this cable. It's powered. The machine needs to be on. The board needs to be powered when you use this cable, because there's no power on the cable. There's no power on the port. And you need Heatsink's Lab Tools as well, which is a free download. It's quite a big download, and it was on the other partition on that machine, because obviously I hadn't used this cable since last September. And surprising as it may seem, it appeared that the Rapidus was shipped out with an older firmware. Whether this firmware that I've put on this board was considered a beta or not, I don't know. If it's okay to do so, I might actually link this firmware, this JTAG file, on my website at some point and link to it in the video description. But it's definitely changed something, because the machine will now run for 4 or 5 minutes as long as I've dared to use it. It'll run, and if I press system reset, it doesn't reboot. So fingers crossed it continues to work in the video. It would be just my luck if it didn't. So we'll power it on. Come on, little Rapidus machine. I'm going to treat you gently. We're not going to surprise you by doing anything unexpected. Okay, so this is in classic mode. So this is the operating system that's carried on the Ultimate 1 megabyte ROM. We've booted into Sparta-X. We press system reset and pray, and it resets as it should. I haven't got any discs plugged in at the moment. Can we get a disc plugged in? Let's see. So I've got respect on the yeah, that's alright. I've just knocked the board. This is a little bit rickety, this setup. We'll reboot again and plug this SIO cable in before I turn the machine on. Right, reseat everything. This stuff's gonna have to be probably lashed down somehow, I think. Try again. Come on, boot, boot, boot. We're not going to do anything unexpected. You're among friends. You can work. There we go. There we go. Okay, now I'm just going to mount a disc. Just going to mount a disc on the peripheral emulator. It's nothing to be worried about. I'm just going to press some keys. Don't crash. There we go. There we go. So DOS works. I'm going to press reset again, and if this thing reboots, it could well go out the window. No, it still works. So I'm reasonably tempted to think that the reset issue is fixed, and we can get into the Ultimate BIOS, and we can get into the Rapidus BIOS. Now the funny thing is, where the hell did I put the chip? Where did I put the chip? Oh, where did I put the chip? It's probably under the case somewhere, isn't it? Is it? Where the hell? Where did I put the other LS await chip? Was it? Oh, there it is. There it is. Is it that one? Yeah. Let's make me a bit smaller. So the 74 LS08 I took out of this machine initially, days and days ago. I tried to put it back in the machine, and in this Rapidus menu I would get corruption around about the menu. Who's knocking on the door? Who's knocking on the door? Charity people at the door. Okay, since chat is positively on fire, I'm going to take a short bathroom break, and I will be back presently. We're back. We are back. Empty chair syndrome. Okay, do you still work? Ah, this is good. Let's see if it still works. No. No. Oh. Oh, God. Unbelievable. You miserable. Yes. Let's see how hot this CPU is. Quite hot. Quite hot. So if you turn a machine on and the behavior changes after a short period of time, what variable is there which could explain the change in behavior? Can anybody answer that? Can anybody tell me what the most common variable that explains a fault which develops after the machine has been powered on for a short time? How could you explain a fault like that? What changes after the machine's been powered on for a short time? Could it be heat? Because when I first installed one of these things, I discovered that if I put a heatsink on the CPU, the 6502 CPU, the reboot problem was alleviated. And nobody could understand why this was, but it did seem to work. And I've had corroboration that it works on at least 2 other machines as well. So why don't we get some heat sinks and put them on this CPU and see if it makes any difference? Let's get my heat sinks. This is just see, at no point do I want to dismiss this upgrade as a miserable pile of... No. I'm not even going to go there. We've tried so far pull-up resistors on the CPU. We've tried a bypass capacitor on E14. We've tried a modification to external select. We have tried, what else did we try? Changing 74 LS08. We've tried a different CPU. So let's try sticking heat sinks on the CPU. So if you propose to install this board, this Rapidus board, in a machine, particularly if it's alongside Ultimate 1 megabyte, be aware that it's not necessarily going to be a simple procedure. I really don't want to stick these heat sinks on because it's just becoming kludgy. Now it's cooled off a little bit. Let's try it again. Let's try it again now that it's cooled off and see if it reboots as it did before. Press reset, and it all works. Okay. Let's stick some heat sinks on. How many am I going to put on? How many is there room for? There's room for 4. Well, let's get another one. So I've put 4, I've got 4 left. So like, oh, that one's got no sticky on it. Who would have thought that a 6502 would require heat sinks? But we're going to do it anyway. I should unplug this and it might be a little bit easier. Then you can see what I'm doing. Heat sink. I know. I know. At least they're a nice colour. Nice blue heat sinks. So keep you nice and cool, so that you're another one with no sticky on. Keep you nice and cool. So as high-speed electronics can continue to work. At least this machine's going to stay in Britain, so it's always going to be reasonably cold. There we are. Look at that. Look at those lovely heat sinks. Let's put you back. Turn you on. So while we're waiting for that to warm up, I'll show you what I've done to the case. So where you can see switch box written there, that's the old monitor jack, the hole for the monitor jack, that's the PBI connector. This is the power jack, this is the power switch, and here was a small hole for the RF modulator. And I marked that off so that it lined up with the DIN 13 jack on the motherboard, which is just there, down there. And I used a Dremel to I used a pen to draw a circle, so the original hole was sort of in the bottom corner here, and I'd mark it out a circle and cut that out with a Dremel and finished it off. And when it was nice and sanded, nice and smooth, I sealed it with acetone. Now it's got to be that kind of acetone that actually melts the plastic on. Just put it on the end of a cotton bud and just ran the acetone around the inside of that hole, and it seals it off quite nicely and makes it look sort of factory. So when we eventually get this thing put back together, you can see what it looks like. And the badge for this machine was removed for cleaning purposes because the case was a little bit yellow, so it's been treated with peroxide. And the next job I want to get on with is wiring up this RGB jack after we have first established whether these heat sinks are going to do anything. And as well as this firmware update, I've still got the external select modification on the board, which I don't think actually does anything. It doesn't really do any good on this machine. And I've still got the pull-up resistors on A0 to A7. And I did try a side cartridge in the machine because it's almost certainly going to be used with a side cartridge, and the side cartridge, it didn't seem to like the side cartridge. Unless you disconnect the Rapidus, of course, in which case everything just works great. So let's have a feel of our heatsink. Alright, a little feel of our heatsink. It's getting warm. The heatsink's warm. So let's press reset and see what happens. And it still works. Still works as we hope. I don't know how long it's been since I turned it on, but looks good so far. Looking good so far. Just sitting around waiting for this thing to warm up. Because what I suggested was the CPU, the 6502, actually gets warmer when there's a Rapidus installed than it would otherwise. Whether this is true or not, I don't know, and I don't know why it would be if it was true, but that's the impression I got. And the reset problems seem to be exacerbated by the temperature increase. So to combat that temperature increase and the effects produced by the temperature increase, I put a heatsink on, and it seemed to improve things a little bit. And I didn't really think that this was I thought this step of adding a heatsink had been more or less rendered defunct by the firmware update, but it would appear not. Yeah, things are nice and warm now. I could probably put a temperature probe on this and see what happens. Still working. Disk still working. DOS is still working. But really, when it gets to the point where you have to stick heat sinks on a 6502, it becomes inelegant. That's still kind of working pretty good. So why don't we, instead of sitting around looking at this thing, why don't we press on and wire up the VBXE, and then we can do some VBXE tests. We can update the BIOS and do all sorts of other stuff. Okay, so let's unplug everything. And let's do the last final bit of wiring on this machine. I've tried to tidy it up somewhat. Of course it looks ridiculous with the heat sinks, the blue heat sinks on the 6502 now, but never mind. Yeah, you need to be plugged in here. I was going to shorten this, but for now we'll just plug it back in. This is the wire that controls the stereo pokey, turns it on and off. So we'll just tuck you in there. And I don't think yesterday I got around to showing you these pull-up resistors. So that's the resistor array. I think is it 10k? I can't honestly remember what the value is, but this was it did make a small difference. It did delay the effect of the reset problem from the point of turning the machine on. Before I added these resistors, these pull-ups, the reset problem would appear almost straight away. Added these and it seemed to delay it by 2 or 3 minutes. So there's something going on with this Rapidus, which is exacerbated by heat. Now if the machine reboots, presumably the magic bytes that the operating system puts into RAM are being misread, or I don't know what. So the pull-ups are kind of cleaning up the address lines, or the lower address lines, the lower rate address lines, and it definitely made a difference. And then I applied the firmware update, which made a further difference, but still didn't fix the problem. And now we've stuck heat sinks on the CPU, and it's further affected the problem, such that we haven't seen it come back since the heat sinks were put on the board on the CPU. So with that in mind, let's just bury our heads in the sand a little bit and press on. I'll measure these resistors. Why is my picture red? White balance. Why are you red? Well, that looks better. Turn the auto white balance off. Is that still? Yeah, that looks okay. That's better. So let's measure these resistors and see what they are, because I can't remember. So that's VCC. So we want 3.3 kilo ohm. So the 3.3, it's a 3.3k resistor array, that one, for all the good it does, but it does do something. So let us, oh, and here is the, because someone asked about the video mod, the video modification. This is actually the chroma line on for the video jack. Get that so you can see it. So that is a 100 ohm resistor, and it goes to the junction between, oh, I can't remember where it's on the instructions I mentioned in the video yesterday. R56 and R57 or somewhere like that. There's a junction of two resistors, and you solder a 100 ohm resistor to there and wire it to the unused pin on the video jack, which is there, and then you get color. So that's how we got color on the machine. So now let's see if we can wire up this RGB jack using these handwritten instructions, this wiring plan that I made a while ago, and I'll separate these little strands of ribbon cable. I've got myself some shrink fit tubing, got everything I need. Because the way I look at it, we could just, these videos could just go on forever if I'm just start a stream up and then discover on air that some problem still exists. So it'll just go on and on and on forever. It's no good. So just bear in mind that if you've got a Rapidus and there's nothing else in the machine, no Ultimate 1 megabyte, no VBXE, there's every likelihood that the thing will work. But it's not just Ultimate 1 megabyte either, which is apt to cause problems, because I did test a machine last year with Rapidus without Ultimate 1 megabyte. It was a 130XE, I think. I tested it with that machine with a side cartridge, booting Spartados X from the cartridge, and lo and behold, the reset issue of the machine spontaneously rebooting when you press reset existed there too. So the people that were running around saying that it was Ultimate 1 megabyte's fault, well, didn't look like it. I mean, it doesn't really make any difference to me either way, because I'm not selling either upgrade, but I can only report what I see with my own eyes, and that machine had a reboot issue as well. So the more load there is on the bus, or the more capacitance there is on the bus, then this seems to be where the problems begin. So you get the feeling, or I get the feeling, that Rapidus was tested in just a sort of narrow selection of machines. And a lot of the stability issues came as a bit of a surprise. So if you don't have much on the machine, there's every possibility that the thing will work. But this is the second machine I've built for someone else with Rapidus in it, and they've both had problems. And I'm catching the mic under my chin. We're trying this different mic, so I'm trying not to touch it. So both machines have had problems. All of the machines that I've tried have had problems, and it's a real pain when you've done everything that you're asked to do and verified that all the wiring's fine and everything pretty much works, but it's just not stable. And so how do you give that machine back to the owner with any kind of sense of closure or, you know, confidence? That's pretty much impossible. Okay, so I'll tin these little pins under the motherboard. I've also wired I've soldered a Atari fan. Nice to see you. So I soldered, I'll show you that little bracing wire. There, oh, where is it? There. So that's just a little wire. That's a little leg from a connector, which I've soldered to the two anchor pins on the DIN jack. So with the hot glue on the other side and those two pins coming through the board and being anchored there, there's no likelihood of that jack coming off. It just doesn't come off. I've done them this way since forever, and they don't come off. Like I said, if you use a hammer to try and smash the thing off, I'm sure it would come off. Or if you plugged it in here and then chopped it, you know, tried to deliberately break it, it would probably come off, but it's not going to come off. So right, let's get my head around this wiring plan. So I've marked ground, so I think this is our ground pin. I'll double check that with the meter. Hi, shocking Shocko. It's just fallen off the top of that tower. Oh, yeah, it's a mess in here. I've gone back to this sort of longer camera angle because I thought my face peering straight into a camera at close quarters was probably not going to do anything for the number of subscribers. So yeah, where was I? Oh yeah, I'm trying to test this wire. We'll check that this is ground. So we want diode mode. And pin 1. Yep. So that's our ground. And then we've got RGB control, green, red and blue. So we can now solder with confidence. Hi 123 Sen. I get the feeling that the Rapidus debugging just puts a complete downer on the whole broadcast. So let's just forget about that for now. So, right, let's see if I can remember. The trouble with the DIN wiring is that it's mirrored, it's flipped between what you see on the back of the connector and what you see on the board, especially on the reverse side of the board. So we'll get my reference machine, because I can't be bothered to think. All the energy's been sucked away. Which ends which? Right, I think I've figured it out now. So that's the kind of mess I used to make before I got the template for the DIN connector. I just did bore a huge hole in the bottom of the board, big enough for all the legs to fit through, and well, it works. And this one, I mean, this one hasn't even got this doesn't come off. There's hardly any glue on this thing, but this is for me, so it's okay, and that's never come off. So let's just remind myself. Yeah, right, I think I've got it. Now. So we've got, what do you think? Will you make it work? Well, we're in doolally territory now. Heatsinks on the CPU. Complete desperation. We're out of firmware. I mean, I think there's an FPGA core update which I'm going to apply once we get the lid screwed down, but I don't know if that's going to do any good. So RGB control, which is this one here. This is RGB control. The only downside about this thing, if it caught fire, is that the owner would be very unhappy, and I would have to pay for all the stuff that's in the machine. Other than that, it would make for a good video. So all the stuff gets soldered to all these center pins. Oh, that's a nice blob. Nice. Nice. Just wick all this crap off. I've got to get one of those proper mesh tip cleaners, because with this thing they give you crap sponge and it's just a complete waste of space. I'm going to tin my pins. What else gets a wire on it? So red, blue, yeah. Is there anything on the other side? Let's have a look at my reference machine. Yeah. Oh, don't forget ground. Don't forget our ground pin. So we're all tinned up and ready to go. Right. Right. So which one are we going to do first? RGB control, which is over on this side of the board. I'm tempted to get the eyeglass out for this because it's eyes aren't what they used to be. Because annoyingly I can't show you the VBXE output because I don't have a capture device which will handle 15 kilohertz RGB. But I can, I suppose, what would be the best way to do this? I'll just swivel one of the webcams around and you can see what's going on. Have I still got that magnifier? Oh, where's that gone? There it is. Can I rig this up in a way that's going to work? Yeah. I'll move this keyboard. There we go. Right, now we've got a bit more space. So, let's see now. It's kind of a bit better, because I should really, if I'm gonna solder it this way on, I should start the other end. So what's at the other end? The other end of the middle row is right audio, so that will be this one here. So I'm going to solder on my right audio. So I'll get myself some shrink tubing. Just here. Slide my shrink tubing on. Okay, here we go. I wonder if I could use the USB microscope for this. Okay, you're on. at that work. It's near the edge of the board. And then I could have worked the other way. That would be good. Let's see if I can plug this in without crashing Open Broadcaster. I don't think I've used this yet on a video. This thing here, have you seen this? This thing here, toy microscope. Let's see if we can use this. Let's see if it's any use at all for what we're doing here. If it can even be set up remotely. What can we put down here to prop this up? There we are. Plug you in. Oh, I'm going to plug you in. Where am I going to plug you in? I'll plug you in here. Right. Deactivate. Activate. There we go. Oh, it's horrible. Really, really awful. I'll move this back a little bit, see if we can get it focused. The stand's so flimsy that you touch the thing to move the focus wheel in it. There we are. There we go. It's going to be awkward as hell. Right, left audio goes up at the top. See, I've started the wrong end now. Never mind. Let's start at the far end of the middle row, which is RGB control, and RGB control is the next one along to ground. So let's solder you on. As the microscope lens is just ridiculously close to the board, but I'll try. I'm gonna try. I got a feel I'm gonna burn something as well. Probably will. There we go. Come on, you're tinned. I know you're tinned. I'll tin you again. Okay, there's RGB control. Next one along is red. Red is this one here. more shrink fit. Why don't I use the tweezers for this? Oh, that makes sense. Use my tweezers. No, that's bad. That was a crap solder job. A really shit job of tinning those pins. More flux. More flux. Right, try again. That's it. It's on. Next, green. Green is this one here. I wonder if I could get the let's have a new scene. Let's have that existing B910. Oh, you're not going to be able to see anything anyway. And then video capture device, easy cap USB capture. That's the wrong one. Yes. Add video capture device. Is that one? Yes. So we could put, yeah, put that down there. Or vice versa. I don't know. Try that. Okay. Which did I say was green? This one. This microscope's not so bad. The frame rate's dreadful and it's completely useless. You can't look. There's no eyepiece, so you can't actually look into it. You have to actually look at the monitor to see what you're doing, but it's kind of has its uses. Alright. Maybe I could use a smaller tip for this. You on? You're on. Okay, and finally, the last one on this ribbon is blue. And blue goes what the hell I put up there? Blue goes oh, it's awful feeling I've done this completely backwards. I think blue, I'll have a look at my reference board again. Yeah, I've done this totally wrong. Totally wrong. Yeah. Okay. Start again. So, right audio, left audio. Oh, have I? No. So what's it? Your okay, yeah, I'll see what I've done on here. Completely the wrong row of pins. Right, start again. Right. So so this is the side that's got, so the RGB control, which is that one. Oh, I've got you now. Oh, I've got you. Yes. And so green, red, green. Oh, I've got everything on the wrong way. What an idiot. Let's start again. So on the far end of the board is RGB control, which is the next one along from ground, which is you. So you go here. I'm going to redo the end of that wire because it's completely burned. RGB control, and it definitely goes on the middle row on the end pin. No doubt about it whatsoever. I'm confident of this. This is so much easier without this damn microscope in the way. Okay, next, red, and red. Oh, I'm hitting that mic again. Red is this one here, isn't it? Red's this one here. Okay, red, that's red on. And the next one is green, and green is you. You're green. Let's get you on. And what have we got left? We've got ground left, and we've got blue, and blue goes down here. That's right. Blue goes down there. I might write a little song called Rapidus Blues. You have to test these cameras out with the guitar, so that might be a good opportunity to do it. Seems solid. So we've got ground and we've got left audio. Left audio goes in the top corner, and sync. Yeah, so we're almost there. Almost there. The sync signal, C-sync, I think we'll pick that off the composite pin on the monitor jack. Oh, this so you can see. I think that's what we'll do. Okay, there's our left audio. I must check I haven't got left and right audio mixed up, because I know Michael, who's doing the 10, was it the motherboard, the XEL, was it 1090 XEL? He's adopted the same pinout on the RGB jack on his new motherboard, so I'm probably best to double check with that. So, ground, we'll put ground on. And if I go and get more shrink tubing, I think I may. So there's our ground pin coming up. Ground pin coming up. Making a really crap job of these wires tonight. Right, that's on. So now we just need sync, and when we've got sync attached we should get a picture. Which pin is composite video? We could just we'll try composite video, why not? Nothing this hard, chapter video jack, composite video. It's up with the chroma pin. So let's get ourselves a wire. We're going to go here, and we're going to go to here. So it doesn't need to be that long. Got any tubing left? Damn. No. We're going to have to go back to the cupboard and get some more. Oh no, there we are. There's some. Good. Tin the wire. Make a little hook on the end. Tin this a bit. Some shrink tubing on it. Wire it on. If I can see what I'm doing. Just about. If I check this reference board again, I just cannot get my head around this tonight. Yeah, that looks about right. I'm suffering the Rapidus effect. Okay, so a sync wire, horizontal sync wire attached. So I'll slide all those little bits of shrink tubing down over those contacts when I'm sure that I've wired it up correctly and not before. So I think we're done with the microscope, so we'll unplug this. Well, little microscope, you did very well. Very, very well for something that cost about £7. No, it wasn't, it was 14 quid, sorry. Right. Okay. I get my SCART lead, which is not plugged in at all. Plug you in, SCART 1. This is going to be extremely difficult to film. Right. Change the source on the monitor to EV1, make sure that everything doesn't fall into pieces, and switch on. Okay, we've got a picture, and the best way I can, oh, this is ridiculous. Ah, this is incredibly awkward. Ooh, come back. Knock the socket. Right, try again. So I'm going to go to scene 2, doing this entirely by feel. Camera 2. Okay, on camera 2. And here we are. VBXE output. I have no way. Oh, I can see. I can watch on the other monitor. There we go. VBXE picture. Work first time. Yes. It works. So VBXE works. I'll put this camera back. Change the source back. So the VBXE works, and we can go ahead and heat that shrink tubing up and finish that little job off. Alright. Get off belly cam, back onto desk cam. It is nice, isn't it? I'll eventually, when we test it properly, I'll try and rig some. How can I do this? I'll try and rig something up so you can see some of the demos and stuff going on. It's actually a little on the grainy side, but that might be the sync signal. That might be my crap cable, but it's pretty nice. So we're kind of there now. We're kind of there. So what I'll try and fit in, turn them off. What I'll try and do, fuck, power jack's tight. Drop the machine in its case, drop the board in the case, show you the jack at the back of the machine, and then we'll update the BIOS, the ultimate BIOS, put my BIOS on it. So I'm obviously an egomaniac and I'm attempting world domination by writing a new BIOS for the ultimate 1 megabyte and subliminally controlling everybody who uses it. I might show you the jack at the back of the machine. Oh, there you go. Right, the light isn't the best. There we are. So let's pop that on the desk. So PVI connector, original monitor jack, which still works of course, and this is our new DIN 13 jack for the RGB signal, and that's where we plug our cable in. And Paul, the owner of the machine, he knows that I've got to make him a SCART cable, which is just about, I think I hate, well, I don't know, two jobs compete for the most onerous job of all, is making SCART cables and getting repeaters to work. I don't know which I like least, but I'm not looking forward to it. They do work at the same time. 1, 2, 3 senders. Do the two video outputs work at the same time? They do, and that's important if you screw up one of the VBXE cores, the VBXE boot core. There's space on the chip for about 12 cores, I think there is. And say something goes wrong with the core, the boot core. If you've only got the RGB output on the machine and the core fails for any reason, it gets screwed up or you have a bad flash or whatever, you've got no RGB picture. So you can run the flashing tool fc.com, which flashes the FPGA core on the VBXE to fix it, but you can flash that, you can run that using the original video output, so you can run that tool. I mean, you've got it's essentially a dual monitor display on the Atari. You can run both displays at the same time, so you could conceivably have the Antic display on the old on the legacy output, and your VBXE display on the RGB output. And am I talking out my arse? Could they be completely independent? I don't know, but yeah, they are. They do work at the same time, and that's how you would recover from a bad flash. Otherwise, you would never be able to see what you were doing. You'd have to do the whole thing blind, you know. So that's the video jack. We've got the let's plug some power in and let's get our capture card back in the USB port that I pinched for the microscope, and hope that I can hot plug all this stuff without the entire broadcast coming to a grinding halt. And plug you in. Right, and plug you in. We'll see if it can run UFlash, and I've got a reasonable expectation that when I run UFlash, which is another one of my these damn, look at this. I'll show you what happens to these keyboard edge connectors. Let's see what happens to these. If you can see this, they start to part company with the plastic backing. Come on, there. So it started to come off. You see how they're not? So I'm going to have to try and stick them down. Probably can't hear because I've got the case resting on the mic. I'm going to have to try and stick them down so that the keyboard continues to work properly. But I'll feed the thing in, hopefully, just for now, get it to work. Now, the other thing I did the other day was I shortened the standoffs on the Ultimate 1 megabyte because these, ironically, I'm such an advocate of the original vertical headers on this board, and the front of these strain relief clips were hitting the back of the keyboard. But the Ultimate board now sits about a centimetre off the, I'll just get a finger in there. So it sits about a centimetre off the top of the board where the RF modulator used to be, so it's very low. So I know for a fact that I can put the lid on, although I'll probably hit the Rapidus. We'll put the lid on, he said. Come on. I know you fit because you fit the other day. Oh, I know what's going on here. Oh no. Oh no. No. Oh. I'm never gonna forget this one in a hurry. So it looks like the ribbon cable, keyboard ribbon cable, if you can see that. Yes, heat sinks. Old school 8-bit Atari 8-bit asks, is that heat sinks? It is heat sinks. I put these heat sinks on the 6502, believe it or not, to try and combat this reset issue, unwanted reboot issue, when I press system reset. and it kind of seems to sort of work. It wasn't completely off the wall. Yeah, latest problem, because I had to, this is a U switch which controls the stereo, enables and disables the stereo. Now U switch, undocumented surprise feature of U switch when used alongside adapters with an Ultimate 1 megabyte plugged into it. U switch, which would normally be soldered direct to this 6-way header here, hits this and you end up with the board at a 45-degree angle. So I raised this board on this little connector here so that it now fits nicely, but unfortunately the keyboard ribbon cable now hits the U switch, so lots more fun things to try and fix. Yeah, kind of goes on. It kind of goes on. So it is shut. So let's turn it on. No picture, but I know for a fact that's a capture card's fault, so before I panic, activate, there we are. Whew. Right. Let's see if we can run U-Flash. I'm going to turn this iron off because I ain't doing no more soldering tonight. I've got on the other machine, I've got Respect running. Right, let's see if the requisite files are on here. Star.rom. What we've got. Alt BIOS 100, Alt BIOS 125. Old PBI 185 and load uload one. Yeah, that's fine. So we'll flash all this stuff and just basically pray. So we'll run U-Flash if it's there. Oh. It's a bit cool at night in the UK, so I just could not be bothered with soldering last night. It was like an oven on this desk. It was horrendous. Well, we went out, me and my wife went out, and we didn't go very far. We just went to a couple of local bars and had a couple of drinks, and then just as it was time to come home, we happened to pass a kebab shop, and she got this strange look in her eyes and took the last fiver out of my pocket, and so we had another kebab. That's the second kebab we had this weekend, so I was all kebabbed out. And it was very warm last night, and I woke up this morning at about 5 o'clock in the morning not feeling all that great. Too much kebab. But when she passes a kebab shop and it gets to a certain point and there's been just enough drink consumed, just can't pass the shop without getting a kebab. That's something that should never change in that respect. I mean, I don't dislike kebabs, but they're not things that I would normally eat. I wouldn't eat them. I'll eat them when I've been out, because, you know, my judgment and common sense has been numbed by drink. But lately I've been having the leftovers the next day as well, and it's worrying. So this is U-Flash, and we can check the version in help about. This is 1.3 by FJC. So we're going to update the main BIOS. and we want UBIOS 1.2.5, which is the most recent released version I've got, although I've got an unreleased version which I should release quite shortly. And anybody watching who wants a Uno cart, I'm just trying to finalise a nice fair fixed price for postage, because I want to offer a tracked postage option. I want to do a tracked option for the postage for these next Uno carts. I'll be doing about 22 of them. And I know people have been waiting for a while, and McCrory is going to take over with subsequent orders. So this is the last batch of Uno carts I'm going to make, the second and last batch. And not that anything's actually gone missing, confirmed missing, but the last batch, one person, when I last spoke to him, he hadn't received the package yet, and hopefully it'll turn up. If it doesn't turn up, we'll make sure that he's compensated for that. But not that I particularly think that that untracked postage is open to any kind of abuse. I'm not suggesting that at all, but I think it's only fair to offer a tracked option for those who want to pay for it. This particular person said that he'd more than happy to pay more postage just for the comfort of tracking. Whether or not it's practical or possible to actually put a claim if something goes missing in the post is kind of secondary to the comfort of being able to track the thing, and for me to know whether it's actually arrived or not from this end, without having to rely on the person who bought it to actually tell me that it's turned up or not, without implying any kind of funny shenanigans. Not at all, but I think it's probably worth doing. So I'll offer an untracked price for postage and packing, and a tracked price. And if you want to go with the untracked option, you can do, but obviously that will be in the full knowledge that you forewent the option of having the safety net of tracking and signature on receipt. So it'll be kind of up to you. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just trying to get a nice fixed price. I want to check the price of, I think UK domestic tracked shipping is going to be a lot cheaper, so it's not really fair to charge people in the UK, say, if the international tracked shipping for these cartridges is £8.50 or something. I'm not going to charge that to people in the UK where the actual price of the tracked shipping is maybe £3 or whatever. Probably not much more than untracked. So, but at the same time I want to keep it as simple as possible. And that's really the only thing kind of holding me up at the minute, as well as stuff like this machine, which I want to sort of get out of my hair before I start building a 22 cartridges with surface mount components on them. So I'll be getting in touch with everyone within the next day or so. That's about as accurate as I can be. I tend to, every time I tend to try and put an accurate time frame on anything, it never seems to work out. So but it will happen very shortly, and then thereafter it'll be like 5 weeks or whatever until they're posted. So there you go. So it still hasn't locked up yet, so yeah, UFlash. We're going to do an in-place BIOS upgrade and hope that it doesn't brick. If it does brick, I get to fire up a virtual Windows 7 machine on that PC, because this programmer I've got, I'll show you my external USB programmer, if I can find which drawer it's in. If I can remember which drawer it's in. Is it in the bottom drawer? Is it in the bottom drawer? No, it's not. Is it in the top drawer? Where the hell is it? There it is. So if I brick this machine, I'm going to be using this EasyPro 90B programmer, but it will only run, the drivers don't work under Windows 10, so I'll use a VMware machine. So we choose the BIOS file, we press enter, yes, slot BIOS, yes, proceed. It should read the file, God willing. It's now flashing. I'm trying to improve my posture as well. I've just got this side view and I just look like a fucking hunchback. There we go, so the BIOS is updated. Now we'll do the side loader. Now I hear so many stories of people tripping up with this procedure where UFlash just hangs or stuff goes terribly wrong. I'm sure it's going to happen one time out of 100 or something if you get a power fluctuation or just basically sod's law comes into play, but I use this thing all the time on these machines that are being pulled apart and put together again and tested with firmware updates, because obviously every time I do a firmware update on this BIOS, it has to be tested on real hardware, and it has to be tested on about 4 different machines plus the incognito machine, and I very rarely have to have the chip pulled out of the machine because of the bricked computer. But there you go. I think if you consistently get bad flashes with this tool, something's not right with the machine. So check your connections, because it should work almost all the time, if not all the time, without incident. Because as I say, this whole procedure is tested repeatedly again and again and again and again with 4 different machines with Ultimate 1 megabyte in them and 1 machine with incognito, and on emulation obviously, where I do cross compilation to develop the software. So we now power off, power back on again, and hey presto, we get profile 1 reset because there is a checksum on the configuration, and when it recognizes that the checksum's wrong, as it will be when you've moved from the old BIOS to the new BIOS, it resets the original profile and takes you straight into the menu to set it up. Now it's just a little unfortunate that Candle decided to put the high-speed operating system in the default operating system slot, because the PBI BIOS has now got the high-speed code in it, and that can be confusing for some people. But what are you going to do? So we're just going to set things up the way we want them. We're going to set the clock. I like to set the year first. It's 2017. It's nearly June, not quite. What we got here? We've got a sticky control key. We've got a sticky control key. Fortunately, you can also press Shift and return to go backwards. So the pending update on this BIOS that I've got sitting waiting to be released, it doesn't reset the highlight to the top menu item when you move between menus, because that was irritating some people. So some people will be pleased about that you can accidentally hit the left and right keys and take an excursion off the menu you're actually on, and when you come back to it you'll still be in the same option. So the time is 21:43 and it's nearly time for me to get out of here, because I ain't doing more soldering tonight. 21:43. I mean, honestly, if you know how to use a BIOS on a PC, you know how to use this. Good news that VBXE has been detected properly. Although I've changed the VBXE detection strategy, because who was it that told me about this? I think it was I think it was Jürgen TFHH, I think is his name on the forum, that he mentioned that the VBXE GTIA core, there's a core on the VBXE called the GTIA core, the emulation core, which just emulates GTIA and nothing else, so you don't get any of the fancy core functions, the blitter, additional colors, higher resolution, all that stuff. You don't get any of that, and it doesn't show up on the address bus. None of the blitter control registers are there or anything, so it's super compatible with software, and it doesn't offer any of the extra features. But because of that, the detection strategy that the BIOS was using, the old BIOS for the Ultimate was using to detect VBXE, was by trying to open the memoc window, which is an area of memory on the VRAM on the board that you use. The 6502 loads data into the VRAM via this window. Well, obviously that window is not present when you use the GTIA core, so the GTIA core, the VBXE wasn't detected at all, and as a result of the VBXE not being detected at all, the BIOS thought there was no VBXE, so it turned the VBXE decoding address off, which is connected to the VB pin on the Ultimate 1 megabyte. It's either D4, D6, D7, or off, so it would turn it off as soon as you turned the machine on, when it figured out there was no VBXE, or thought there was no VBXE. So what Jürgen pointed out, that it was then impossible to change the boot core on the VBXE, because by the time you booted into the operating system, the thing was disabled and it was inaccessible by the flasher. So the only way to get around it was to downgrade the BIOS and then flash the core, change the boot core. So that was a problem that needed to be fixed. So what I ended up doing was I changed the detection strategy so that it uses the what's the word I'm looking for? Mine's going blank. The bit toggle used by the actual core flasher. It uses the bit toggle to detect, empirically detect whether or not there's actually VBXE on the bus, and that had the effect of breaking VBXE detection in the Altera emulator until we very quickly fixed it. So he's implemented a kind of you can't flash the core in the emulator, but you can use the AVR registers to actually detect the hardware. So the next version of the BIOS that's waiting to be released will have that in it. So that's, again, I've had to test that on numerous different machines, and I'll be probably update this machine before it goes back. So let's get back to this. So we've set the time, we've set the stereo pokey is disabled. Let's enable it. PBI BIOS is off for the moment. Yeah, we'll leave that off for the moment because I'm not going to get into the Side 2 cartridge tonight. No, because I've got a feeling it's not going to work. I've got a feeling this machine is going to work until such time as you put a cartridge in it. And then the whole horrible saga just continues ad infinitum of trying to tweak things so that they work with a cartridge without. I had one machine, I had it's a 1200 XL. I've hit the mic again. I had a 1200 XL. I can't remember whether it was mine or one that I was working on for somebody else, and it had repeaters in it, and it would work. It would actually work when Side 2 was plugged into it, but it went all to hell when it wasn't plugged in. So when I was testing the thing, I thought, oh, it works. It's stable. and then as soon as I unplugged that cartridge, it was completely fucked up again. So here's our hardware report in the BIOS. See, this BIOS dates from last year. Posture. VBXE Core FX 1.26a, so that works, but that's the old detection method. BIOS menu key, help, cold boot key, disabled, whatever. You can select. Boot logo enabled, flash writes enabled, color, so you can change the color of the BIOS. Anything you want. Some people use the color feature as a way of easily differentiating between the two profiles, because you can change, you've got two configuration profiles on this BIOS. Screen timeout, which it's actually a screensaver. I've called it screensaver in the more recent build. Sound enabled, that's just the key click sound. Device 2 and device 3, now these device 2 and device 3 refers to the two unused pins. Of course I would get wrong from, I'd be told off by Sebastian for calling them unused pins, because they had some unspecified usage that us lower beings were not aware of, which I've misappropriated for general use. But device 2 and device 3 refer to the would be the SO and S1 pins on the IO pins on the Ultimate board, which you can repurpose on using this firmware with plugins. And I've got a Rapidus plugin which I will be putting on this machine. So I'll update the BIOS again when I put the newer version on, and it's going to have a Rapidus plugin. And what the Rapidus plugin does is it adds Rapidus detected on this little screen here, this little hardware report, and you also get a little option somewhere. Is it on this menu? I think it's on this menu. The system clock and features menu has an extra option which lets you turn the Rapidus core loading on and off, so, which is effectively the same thing as unplugging that three-way header on the Rapidus board. So we're happy with that. Press S to save to profile 1, which is the same as that option there, and we'll go reboot by C, cold start, Ultimate 1 megabyte, loading. So this looks like it's turned off the Rapidus core. That's right, so I've just remembered, because of the logic of the Rapidus's ground pin is connected to SO on the Ultimate 1 megabyte, but the BIOS isn't aware of what it's for yet. So I'll have to turn this on, I think. Try that. It gets a little confusing. Unless I've got Rapidus in the wrong pin. I don't know. Ah! That's probably wise. That's probably for the best. I had the 3-pin header and the Rapidus board completely unplugged. How long's that been unplugged for? That was out. Oh god. So I've just plugged that in again. So this probably means that the heat sinks don't work after all. I don't know. I've got all befuddled with this board. So I think you have to turn that on. If it's off, it's on. So if I reboot, I should get the core loader, which I do. It should power on. and it does. And press reset, and it works for now. Works for now. Okay. Elementary starts in 6 minutes. I'm somehow gonna have a bath. So that's where we are with this machine. I may come back to it, I may not. It's basically finished. I'll find some way of testing PLC demos and lamers, film in the monitor. I could. Let's try it with. What the hell? We'll try it with this cartridge. I've just got no confidence in the thing working at all. So let's pop into the BIOS. Let's turn on the hard disk. This is going to fail miserably. I just know it. I just know it. That looked like some screen corruption there as well. Yeah, this is not going to work. Yeah, it's kind of worked. See. Nah. Do I get a little light on this cartridge when it starts up? Hey, look at that, what's with the missing pixels here? And now it's on. Yeah. Yeah. So this is I'm not convinced this machine, well, clearly it doesn't work properly yet. Unless I just unplug that three-way header on the Rapidus board, in which case everything works great. So that's not really enough, and when the owner paid 100 quid or more for a Rapidus board to put in the machine, and I can't really recommend this combination at the moment. I haven't been able to recommend it for the past year. I can't recommend it today. Because I sort of know what I'm doing, but if we get the point of heat sinks on the processor and stuff like that, it's just getting crazy. We could put this, try and put this firmware update on, I suppose. But wait, can we try that? Can we try that? Let's see. Oh, where did I put that? Desktop, Rapidus, firmware. Where did I put that? I did download this stuff, so where the hell did I put it? It's not downloads, is it? OOTB, Ulti upgrade, it's not that one. Rapidus. Where the hell? I did download it. Rapidus upgrade zip. Right, Rapidus upgrade zip. Where is that? Rapidus upgrade, and there's an ATR. So now we should be able to mount this ATR. Rapidus upgrade ATR. Right, let's give that a try. We might as well follow it through the bitter end. No. turn this off. Boot. I mean, at what point does it become a sort of a caveat emptor thing where you say to the poor sod that owns the machine, you know, well, it's done, but don't expect it to work. Alright, what we got? Back off, module update. Clear the Rapidus BIOS RAM, run MCL to do that. Optional update the OS RAM during the following command: flash OS, track OS RAM. Flash the new contents to the Rapidus RAM. Use our flash module to accomplish that. Rapidus upgrade instructions. Let's read. Let's read this. Okay, let's do this. Let's do this. Start your Sparta-DOS X and the Rapidus upgrade disk. Load the rclr.com to prepare the flash memory for the. Okay. Let's do this. rclr.com. rclr. Yep. System error. rclr. Right. Yeah. So the flash tool that I downloaded from Letharic's website doesn't actually work on this machine. Presumably it can't detect the board or whatever. It's just a miserable pile of crap. There's no other way to put it. I've never had a good experience of putting one of these in the machine yet, so I've just got to be honest about it. On paper it's pretty good hardware, but in practice the number of kludges and mods and fixes and tweaks and just trying to orchestrate everything so that plugging a cartridge doesn't upset the machine, and it's just a completely miserable experience that is just an awful can of worms that you're going to open up for yourself. I wish I could say that things had improved significantly in the year since the thing came out, but it doesn't appear to be the case. I have a phone call. You can wait. It's probably Letharic on the phone. Either that or the owner of the machine. But yeah, I think we've spent enough time on this machine as far as videos are concerned. If we have some sort of a revelation with it, I'll come back to it. But you know what's been done to it. If you watch the videos, you can see that we've tried all kinds of different stuff to try and get it to run stably, and it still won't even be detected by the Core Flash software. And probably there are a bunch of people who are about to tell me that I should send the machine to Poland, which is not going to happen. You know, how much messing around do you need to do before you get this thing to work? I don't know. It's really disappointing. It really disappointing. I mean, I'll probably get to the point where it's good enough and it sort of works, and it's, I don't know. It's just really annoying. But never mind. Never mind. So the machine basically works, but in some key areas it doesn't. So that's the end of the Rapidus 800XL series. I think 7 parts was enough, and I'll have to go and see if I can find out how to fix the last couple of problems, and I will do an update video if I do get anywhere with it, and if I don't get anywhere with it, then I'll try and move on. Try and move on is probably the best way. So I hope you enjoyed watching. I hope that this was of some use in some way, shape or form, and I will do, I'll try and film some VBXE stuff from this machine at some point, probably as an incidental aside from some other job. And hey, what's going on? Hi, Lizo. Yeah, so Ram Vafandre. I've got to be careful what I read out on chats now. I was caught out once before. The only person on Twitch a few weeks ago, the first person who wrote anything in Twitch chat, and it was spam, and it got banned immediately. But I'm sure that's not the case here. But yeah, you've just arrived just as I'm about to sign off. So yeah, it was a bittersweet experience, this machine. Bittersweet experience. It's turned out nicely, but it's cursed. It's crippled. So yeah, hi. I'm not even going to read that name out. What is going on here? 8-bit machines, 8-bit computers with an accelerator board in, which never works. So I'm going to get out of here anyway. So thanks for watching, and if you liked it, hit like, and if you want to subscribe to the channel, that's great, and I will see you in the next video.